So for anyone that's ever sold their home, they can attest to this. That sign right over there with that 4-letter word, SOLD, sold, that is the most important thing to anyone that is selling their house. And let's be honest, the reason why is because that means your payday has come in. That means the money is on its way to your bank account if it's not already there. So today, in order to make sure that happens for you, we're going to cover the 3 most important things that a seller needs to do when selling their home to make sure it happens on the first contract. Alright sellers, today we're going to be talking about 3 points to make sure you get from contract to close on the first time. And I'm going to tell you the first thing and most important thing, and it's going to seem obvious, but you need to hire a realtor to represent you as the seller in the transaction. It is extremely important for the seller to get their own realtor because of 2 major things. One, when you come into the transaction, it is highly likely that the buyer is going to come in represented by a realtor, and that realtor is going to be representing them and their interest only. They can't, by law, represent your interest. So you're going to need somebody that's going to assist you in representing your interests in the transaction and making sure that they're working on your side to get you to the closing. The seller has a lot of things that they need to complete. The realtor representing the seller is going to post the listing on MLS. They're going to potentially work with you on the staging and getting photos to help your listing look as beautiful as it can on the MLS listing. They're also going to be the ones that organize around the contract and the due diligence time periods and make sure that everything is taken care of for the seller. So this person is going to be earning that commission that they have asked for. When you're initially signing that contract with the realtor, that 3% may seem a little high at the outset, but I'm going to tell you for certain, you will receive value for that 3%. Which brings me to my second point. If you're not a realtor yourself, then I would not try to pretend to be a real estate professional. What I can tell you is this: in the vast majority of transactions that I see come across my desk, when there are 2 realtors involved and sellers that know how to use their realtor, the transaction happens so much more smoothly than it does without. These people go to real estate school, they get licenses, they do these things to make sure that they know how to do it. I would not recommend trying to do the closing and try to get to close by yourself. So it's probably the most obvious tip, but it's also probably the most important tip. Sellers, get a real estate agent. The second tip that I have for you as a seller is to make sure that you're educated on the process, and let's be honest, what I mean is be educated on how much money you're supposed to get out of this transaction. Ask your realtor about a net worksheet, and what they're going to do in this net worksheet is they're going to take your purchase price and any amounts that you're supposed to receive in the transaction, and they're going to match them up against the cost of the transaction. They're going to take out the commissions, any excise taxes, any fees that you're going to have, and give you sort of a brass tacks amount on exactly how much you can expect to be deposited in your account once the transaction is over with. This is extremely important to you as a seller, because why else are you selling your home except to get that home sold for cash? Make sure that you know exactly what's supposed to be coming to you at the end of the day, because when you get to the closing table, somebody is going to have to explain to you why that's different. So if they go ahead and give you that net worksheet and tell you exactly what you should expect, it shouldn't vary very much up until the end of the closing. There will be things that come up and may cause little changes, but at that point in time, you'll be the educated individual and you'll know exactly why that's there. So my second tip really is get educated on it, and I don't mean only educate yourself on the money. There are many other things that you need to educate yourself on, which you can use my YouTube channel here at Clear to Close, or just use the web to search what a seller needs to do in a transaction. This is super important for 2 reasons. One, I know that you as a seller are going to try to take that money and go elsewhere with it, meaning it's not just going to stay in your account in most cases. It's either going to go to be invested somewhere, or it's going to be invested in your next home, especially if you're going on to a next home. You want to make sure you've got enough to cover what is needed to purchase that next home, and it's good to know that amount as soon as possible. So go ahead and ask for that for the net worksheet from your realtor. Heck, go ahead and call the settlement agent and see if there's any costs and things like that involved with it if you want to do the legwork yourself. Just get educated on the process, and I can promise you, you will get clear to close sooner. So the third and final tip that I'm going to give you as a seller is this: be communicative with everyone around you in the closing, and make sure that you are communicating with them at all times about what's going on. Many sellers that I see make the mistake of being silent and kind of waiting for the closing to happen. I don't believe that's a good process or a good mentality for the seller to take. It's going to be very important for the sellers to communicate with many people during the transaction, inclusive of their own realtor, potentially the other realtor if there's any questions that they have directly, the settlement agent, the people who are going to be coming out and potentially fixing and repairing things at their house, the people who are going to be coming out and doing appraisals. The seller is going to need to be a participant in all of those things. So it's going to be very important for the seller to be communicative and be an active part of the closing. You really can't just sit back and wait for the check to show up. When you've decided to sell your home, you got to take responsibility and help the transaction move forward, or else it may be your fault that the contract doesn't go all the way to close because of the things that you haven't done on a timely basis. This may be especially true during the due diligence time period, because if they're not able to get inspections because you're not home, or you haven't communicated with their inspection people to be able to allow them onto your property, those things might cause the buyer to just flat out walk away because they can't do the due diligence that they want to do to make sure that they really do want to buy the home. So one of the things that we as settlement agents do is reach out to you as a seller to say, we need your information to produce certain documents. If you're not a communicative seller, there's no way that we can get the transaction to move forward smoothly. So in conclusion, what we want you to know as a seller is that there are 3 very important things that you can do to make sure that you get from contract to close the first time. The first thing, get that realtor. I'm going to tell you it's going to be one of the best decisions that you ever make. The second, get educated on the subject of selling your home. Make sure that you know exactly what the money is that's supposed to be coming out to you so that there are no surprises. We know that the money coming out of this is potentially the most important thing. So get educated on the process and know exactly how much is supposed to be coming back to you. And the third thing, be communicative and be part of the transaction. Make sure that you as a seller are not an absentee seller just waiting for that check to come in. Make sure that you are talking to your realtor, talking to your settlement agent, and helping them move you from contract to close. I sincerely appreciate your time here today on Clear to Close. We hope you as a seller have found this information interesting. If you like the video, please hit that like button below. And if you're new here and you're involved in a transaction where you're selling your home, please hit that subscribe button and hit the notification button, because we're going to be putting out more videos like this to make sure you know how to get clear to close as soon as possible. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.